I live in Los Angeles, and what the radio station, I'm making this personal so you know, the radio station may have been 102.3 KJLH, I think. Um,
JLA,
a-
JLA.
yeah, yeah. And I was like in the car with my mother, and Stomp came on, and we would listen to it. I mean, on repeat, because KJLH just had it in heavy rotation back when people listened to radio like that. And I thought to myself, literally at this age, he's special. He's set apart. When you had that hit record, did you feel like you were in survival? In survival mode then? You even felt that way then?
Yeah, because I did that record as a demo. When I did the Why We Sing album, is I did the Why We Sing album because a deacon at a church believed that my music was good, and he gave me $5,000 to do that album. But I was behind on my child support. I was behind on my car note. I was behind on my rent. So even when that album came out, I was being evicted from my apartments, and there were people in the neighborhood that had that CD. So my homeboys moved me out late at night so that nobody would see me.
That's crazy. That is absolutely insane. What a blessing, though. What were you thinking? Here you are with this hit record in heavy rotation all across the country, and you're being evicted. What were you thinking? What were you thinking? Okay, so the blessing is around the corner. I'm about to make some money, and I'm about to blow up, and I'm going to buy me a big house.
You ain't thinking none of that. You ain't thinking none of that. You're not thinking any of that. You don't have any expectations for good. It's I it's I think that people don't really understand the realities of childhood trauma and how deep they mold and wire you from every aspect and lens that you see life through. You see life through everything that was your beginning. And so, and I don't always like to pull out the violin because I know that everybody has their own hurts and pains. And sometimes people, when they pull out the violins, you can be so engulfed in your own mess that you forget that other people are suffering, going through the same time, it's the same thing. I'm only speaking because we're doing an interview, but my beginnings on this planet were so, you know, I remember being 13 years old and hearing the woman that gave birth to me tell the woman that adopted me, I didn't want him.
Hmm.
I wanted an abortion, but you wouldn't let me. Do you know how that sets the trajectory for your life to know you're not wanted? So when you getting kicked, when you getting kicked out and you ain't got no money and you got to sit whatever, it's just par for the course. That's your norm. That's your norm.
Hmm.
My cars were always getting evicted. I was always getting kicked out. I was homeless for 2 years, sleeping in the car. It was the norm. It was
How does
abnormal for something good to happen.
it was abnormal for something good to happen. So when you get this
Yeah.
wonderful hit record, this album that everyone loves, are you waiting? Are you waiting for the other, I don't know, the other bad thing to happen? Are you waiting for this to go away? Are you thinking this can't be true?
hmm All of the above, while at the same time you're also numb. You're so numb from where you come from. You don't. It's almost like it feels like you're watching somebody else do it.
So when you say feels like you're watching somebody else do it, you're just going through the motions.
You're
I'm
just
blown away
going through.
because you would I get it. Like childhood trauma is a real thing, and having a parent or not having a parent in your life, especially when you become an adult, you're like I see all of the issues. I see how I play this out in my relationships. I see how I play this out in my friendships. I physically understand that and see that today. I wonder, as you say that to me, and you think, oh, it was all numb. What's the perspective? Like that was not, you're still young and hot and fine and all the good stuff, but that was years ago, and that's just a testimony for everybody. So you look back, you look back at it now. Are you thinking, oh, I see why God did it that way?
It is very obvious that God uses you in spite of you, and God uses what you go through also for others. If everything is hunky dory, then He doesn't give birth to a soul like Imagine Me, right?
Mm-hmm.
You you are this. living epistle or this billboard that God can write whatever he wants to write on it, right? And but the pain of it all, the difficulty of it all is still very real for you,
Mhm.
and even as a grown man, I still find moments in my life where family tragedy still creeps itself up, and I still have to deal with the hurts and pains of of things that have to do with my past, my child, even today, even to this very day, there are things that creep up that at times can still be brand new information. Like this week,
Like
I'm dealing
what?
with new information. Well, I don't want to say it right now, just
Mhm.
out of respect to the other family members, and as I go through the process of trying to figure out how I'm going to respond to it, is because
Mhm.
I was on the phone with my therapist yesterday trying to process this new information, but it is very difficult to move forward or to get healed when the wounds keep getting pulled off. And so I've lived a lot of my life like that, even to this very day. It's I think that most people in this country will never realize the 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 broken spaces that black and brown people in this country feel from the introduction ever
Mhm.
since they landed on the East Coast. That we have been so deconstructed and so programmed, and the fundamentals of family and the things that are stable were robbed from us, that it may take several generations for us to still continue to heal from what chattel slavery did to an entire race of people.
Mhm. 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 100%. We still have this energetic imprint. We still feel like we have to prove. We still feel like we don't belong. We pay attention. I see it. I day in and day out. You said that you were talking to your therapist, so we don't have to get into particulars. But since this is Mental Health Awareness Month, I would like to talk about therapy and Black
Mm,
men. I think
mm.
it's important, and I think that I today know so many Black men who don't understand the value in therapy. What has it done for you? How has it helped you as you, on the outside looking in, successful family, the life, the career, all of the things, and yet and still, and that's probably even more so why you need therapy, and yet and still,
Yeah,
um,
yeah, yeah,
you know what I mean? Like even more so, even more of the reasons why you have
yeah.
therapy. How has that? How do you use that daily? How do you encourage other Black men to say, it'd be nice if you just sit down and talk to somebody and be completely naked and vulnerable and share everything?
Yeah, well, it's even like you just said, which is very true. Success brings its own level of trauma, and you felt that, right? You felt that,
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, just all of it. There's a lot of wounds there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Success brings its own level of trauma, and I think that uh, uh, there is more talk in our community than it has been historically about therapy and counseling and mental health, and I'm very excited about that. I've been going to therapy since I was in my 20s, and
Mm.
and 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 I've been consistent. And it's funny because I asked my therapist, I said, why do you think I'm probably your longest patient? And we were laughing, and he said because every experience in your life activates a new trauma.
Every experience in your life, every new experience in your life activates a new trauma. So if you get a new job, if you have a hit album, if you have a new relationship, if you have a new friendship, every single experience activates a new trauma. Is that what he said?
They can. It just depends on the individual's background. It just depends on what their experience is. Like, as I'll give you a perfect example. I was around some younger producers, and they were at the studio and they were looking at the junk on the wall, right? Awards and plaques and all that other
Mhm,
stuff.
mhm, mhm.
And they said to me, one of them said, it was like, so what's the secret sauce? And 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 I said to him, I said, well, my answer is not going to be sexy. I said, but if you want to know what my motivation is and why I'm so ambitious and so driven, I said, is because
Hmm.
I can't afford for you to forget me.
Is that a trauma? Is
Yes,
that a
it's
need?
abandonment. It's abandonment issues.
Okay, we're going to have church today. Okay,
Mhm.
so wow, wow. And that's why you work so hard. And that's why I work so hard. Because you don't want to be forgotten. You don't want people to not know you exist, and the more work you put out, the more you feel like you're valued. And the more people praise you, you understand your value. That's a real thing for a lot of people. Same,
Where for
same,
some
same, same, same.
where for some people that maybe had healthy fathers and mothers that were always reaffirming, letting them know that what you do is not who you are, then they may not have that level of experience. Where that's why you can see some football athletes or some other athletes or artists, after one or two albums, they can just walk away. They just walk away. It's like, all of this is not for me. 'Cause I don't want all that.
But the attention and the adoration, or even the adrenaline, and even in using sports analogies, you can't replace that. That's why certain people, you think you can't replace it. That's why some people keep coming out of retirement and coming back and
Right,
sacrificing their
right,
families. Right? That
right.
that's a thing that's real.
Real thing.
You
It's
and
a
you
real
need
thing.
that.
It's a real thing,
So
but some don't. Some don't. Now they may be a fewer percentage, but
yeah,
some don't.
sure. Like a
Some
Barry
don't.
Sanders. You're like, oh, okay, that's it. We out. Done. We don't do it anymore. Got it.
Look, great example. Great example.
So now that I feel like when I listen to your music, obviously it's grown over the years from when you first started to now. How do you see yourself from when you first came out in terms of being an artist, and what you do currently? Like, I love the collaboration with Maverick City. I thought that was beautiful, just beautiful, just beautiful. Even watching some of the videos that you guys did with the live music, it was just special and set apart. How have you seen your music grow and change over the years?
It's kind of hard for me to define it or describe it because I'm the one doing it, and
Mm-hmm.
so I, I don't really know. I don't really know how to describe it, or I don't really even know how to define it. I think I'm
Mm.
just always doing my best to figure out how to have a relevant conversation with culture about God and authentic ways to connect to people so that they don't forget you. And,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a very vulnerable place to be. I mean, and it even takes a level of
Mm-hmm.
vulnerability for me to even say that to you. Is that being forgotten is a very vulnerable place because
It's a real thing, Kirk. I
oh yeah,
understand it. I understand. Do you know the hardest
yeah,
thing for me was to walk away from ESPN because I wouldn't be on TV Monday through Friday? Where was my value? Like, where would
yeah,
my value be if I'm no longer on TV Monday through Friday? If I didn't have people telling me I was the greatest at what I did, where would my
yeah.
value be? But I wasn't happy, right?
Mm.
And I couldn't do what I knew I was born to do, what I had been chosen to do. I couldn't tell the stories because they didn't want to hear about the black culture. They don't want to hear these stories, and you're like, "Well, I can't. I'm compromised." And I didn't want to compromise that. Have you ever felt like you've had to compromise your music, or have you ever felt as if you did after the fact? Case in point, you do a thing with Kanye. I love it, and you get on social media and you're like, come on now, I'm just trying to help a brother. This is pre, this is,
Yeah,
I'm not going to go to, it's pre.
yeah.
It was
Well,
pre
no,
slavery
no,
was a choice.
no. Those things don't bother me. Is I think I question the compromise sometimes of artistic freedom. I think that because there are styles and tastes, and because I come from a background of such real musicianship, I think that sometimes commercialism or trying to speak different languages at times can make you wonder if you're compromising. But I've been very consistent in my message. Is I believe that at this stage that people are very clear that when I do a song, who I'm talking to, who I'm talking about, is I don't think that there's much ambiguity there, and so I feel very comfortable in those spaces. Uh, yeah, so mine would more than anything, it would just be the artistic freedoms.